Hi, welcome to Not So Obvious Watches. Today I'm going to do another Why This Watch, and today it's why have I got the Breitling Transocean reference 7102 from the early 1970s. Before we go on, these Why This Watch episodes are not reviews, they are not critiques, they are not in any way, shape or form objective. It is 100% my subjective reason for owning or maybe one day not owning a watch, but today it's why I own it. If you're interested in that, see you on the other side of the intro. Even if you're not interested, how about you just turn the sound off and watch the pretty pictures? I really like how the photos turned out for this one. Anyway, see you on the other side. Okay, so why have I got a Breitling Transocean reference 7102? In a way, it's kind of obvious. I've always liked older and vintage watches. Anyone who's followed the channel has seen I've become something of a Breitling fan. And I've said a number of times, I find the modernism that a lot of people hold up as classic and timeless to be a bit dull and a bit boring and a bit vanilla. Being a 1970s watch and near as damn it 50 years old, being a Breitling and being anything but dull and modern, this watch would seem obvious. But then on the other hand, I've often said I'm uncomfortable with vintage chronographs, which this clearly is. And it's also not something I routinely collect. I've spoken about how I am a collector and I collect Prospex divers, travel watches and vintage Alpinas. So what gives? Is this watch so special it makes it into the very exclusive club of watches I keep that I just plain old love that doesn't make the other categories? Well, actually, no. It is special and I do love it, but it's not in that, category where it doesn't apply to any other rules. This watch marks me creating a new collection. For a little over a year, I've been thinking about adding another string to my bow, putting another collection arrow in the quiver. And finally, I've decided to go for it. I am going to add another sub-collection to my collection. And the sub-collection is Breitling chronographs. Why? I've made no secret of the fact I've become something of a Breitling fan. Their history is really appealing to me, both its highs and its lows. I love companies that have had to take a punch and get back into the ring, and Breitling's had to do that a couple of times. But I also love the future and the direction that Breitling's taking at the moment. This whole accessible, casual, inclusive, sustainable thing. Frankly, if you were designing a brand around me, and I'm pretty confident George wasn't, they're the things I would want to be. So it's a brand whose background I love, whose future I love. I really am keen on building up a Breitling presence in my collection. And if you're going to do that, of course it's going to focus on chronographs. Breitling was one of the companies that pretty much defined what we think of as a chronograph now. And if you look at their current range, almost all of it comes in some variation of a chronograph. This, if you're going to get something which is quintessentially Breitling, it's going to be chronographs. Hence the idea of collecting Breitling chronographs. Okay, so me being me, I've immediately then launched into a year and a half's research on everything I can find out about Breitling chronographs, about what are the models out there, what are the makes, what are the movements, what were the style choices, what were the directions I want to go into. And I've made my list. I've made the list of 20-ish Breitling chronographs, which in time I want to comprise my collection. So then the question becomes, why is this watch on it? But perhaps even more so, why this watch now? Okay, so let's get into that. This watch now is everything I want my first watch in this collection to be? First off, it's obviously a Breitling. Secondly, it's obviously a chronograph. Thirdly, it's a manual wind, which means from a whole servicing and checking it out point of view, it's a little bit simpler, a little bit less daunting than getting into a vintage automatic chronograph just yet. But more than that, right now, at the end of 2021, after the last 2 years we've got, what I wanted was a watch which captured all of those postmodern ideas of fun and optimism and play and novelty and hope for the future. As we come through this pandemic, as the vaccinations come on board, as new treatment options open up, and we begin to think in terms of returning to a world where we think the future will get better, where the future will get brighter, picking up something which is so obviously of that early 70s postmodern feel, where we want big and bold and fun color choices, just as we have here with the blue and the white and the orange, and we want big chunky applied indices and really funky integrated bracelets, something I would normally run from at 100 miles an hour, and weird saucer shaped cases. As we bring all of that together in this one watch, it just screams hope and optimism and looking forward to the future being better. And this watch, every time I look at it, reminds me of that, makes me think of that, and that's why this is my watch. Okay, so that's it. That's why I've got a 1970s Breitling Transocean chronograph. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, this idea that I want to have another sub-collection and take where I'm going in a different direction. It took me a while to get there. Over the next couple of years, you'll slowly start seeing some of these watches emerge in my collection. Interested in your thoughts. Anyway, so that's really about it. See you later. Bye.